Well, good day, viewers. We are welcoming you to this conversation and thank you for joining us today. This is a very meaningful conversation, we hope, to you and certainly to us on our panel as we cover a topic that probably a year ago we would have never thought we would have had to cover. But it's become clear to us this is important information, and processing awareness and helping people who have had to deal with loss during 2020. So I want to welcome in our panelists today who have walked through this journey from different ways, and personally or professionally. So let me introduce you to them, and then we'll jump in here. First, I want to welcome Linda Martin to our conversation today. Linda is one of our counselors here at Samaritan, has been on our staff for several years, and has walked through this journey with many people, many clients, but also she's going to share her personal journey this year of how this has impacted her and her family. So thank you, Linda, for being part of our conversation today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Then we have Pastor Jim Weist from Weist, excuse me, I got it right there, Jim. He's actually quite new in town, and the pastor over at Hope Lutheran Church in Bradenton on 26th Street. So Jim, welcome to our community and welcome to this conversation.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's been a good 6 months here in Bradenton, and just thankful for the opportunity to encourage one another.
Quite a unique time to join a new church.
Yeah, it has.
Community.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that. And then our third panelist today is Jason Toale, who is with Robert Toale and Sons Funeral Homes, who has several locations in Bradenton and Sarasota. So thanks, Jason, for jumping in on our conversation today.
Good morning, John. Thank you for having me.
So viewers, we decided to do this today and talking with some of our staff about trying to offer some support for those who are walking through grief and the uniqueness of what their grief may look like because of COVID and the pandemic. And in that conversation, we realized, we just want to address that it's been different for a lot of families than what we normally would feel like we could expect in end-of-life care or end-of-life rituals, memorial services and funerals. So we want to start by just talking about changes in care, what that looked like. And I'm going to ask Linda to share first. So from a family member who had a patient who was in the hospital, that was quite different. And so Linda, share with us what you experienced as a family member in change of care that was not normal.
It's been dramatically different. Early in the year, my husband had cancer treatment and was at Lakewood Ranch, and such limited access even when he was in recovery. Limited hours, at times you couldn't come at all. And I'm accustomed to being able to be there and be supportive. And particularly if someone has limitations where they're not able to use their phone, it's not realistic sometimes for them to be able to FaceTime when they're coming out of a procedure. And then, as I've shared with you individually, my husband went into the hospital in October, shortness of breath, all of those symptoms, went via ambulance, and a week later was diagnosed with COVID and passed away. And so initially not being able to, he wasn't diagnosed with COVID, but not being able to go into the hospital to be there with him, communication problems, his own isolation as a patient. You lose interest in food and there's nobody there to talk to. It's very difficult. And then obviously at the end, it's difficult. Not being able to even be in the room, viewing him through a portal, very difficult for the family.
Yeah.
And even in procedures, after he passed, making arrangements and all the precautions because of COVID made it more difficult and more complicated.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're acknowledging that the normal grief thing was there, but it was more complex.
More complex, and some of my own fears, because I did have contact. And so then you have the fear of, could I have contracted it? Fears for family. Changed the pattern. We have adult children out of state and didn't want them to fly. Concerns for their own safety, postponing, and we'll talk more about rituals and funerals and that.
Yeah.
Not being able to be with friends, or my pastor.
Yeah.
You know, it's been supportive, but it's been Zoom, it's been phone.
Yeah, so very isolated and
Very isolated.
lacking that physical touch and just being in the same room, right?
Exactly. And even now that it's been a couple of months, to get with a girlfriend and go to lunch, haven't done that.
Yeah.
So it's very isolating.
Pastor Jim, Linda just mentioned she couldn't hardly, really even connect with her own pastor. So I'm imagining that, from your seat, that's a different, you're experiencing different kind of way to care, way to show that you are there for your congregation. How has this played out this year for you?
Yeah, my first question, I'm going to bring a question back to Linda because it ties in with what you just asked me is I know you're in the grieving process. It's only been a couple of months, but what is allowing you to push through such, again, that isolation, that not being able to be there? What's giving you hope? What's helping you process through? I mean, that's part of why we're having this discussion.
Yes.
Is, what do we do to help people? So what's been helping you so far?
I think the thing that I have been buoyed up by the group that I work with, working with Samaritan, and even though it's a Zoom meeting, but we weekly, and it's made a huge difference in my faith, hanging on to the promises. And I'd like to present that I'm doing really well with it. And I have to admit, I was very pleased. I've been sleeping well. And then last night, I was up at 2 and didn't get sleep beyond that. So it's a process and a road. And I don't think there's a single easy answer. It comes in waves, and it can be incredibly debilitating. But I think some of the things that have been helpful to me is just people reaching out, even though it's maybe a text or an emoji. But just knowing, even though I'm isolated, there are people out there.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's been my situation too. It's looking for different ways. I can just give a personal note. My dad passed away 3 years ago from dementia. My mom lives up in Michigan. She's in a 55 plus community, but it's a community that it's a care community. So there's actually a place where you can eat and gather, and a lot of that's been shut down. And then with some of the things that have happened in Michigan, she was going to have a Thanksgiving dinner with some people, and then they did some more restrictions. And she called me and said, I'm going to be in my room by myself on Thanksgiving. And that was just so hard. It's tied into all of these emotions. I didn't want that for my mom. I don't want that for my members. And so I was thinking about that as a pastor of my congregation. Well, what can I do? Because I know that there were members who are dealing with the same thing in our community. And so one of the things similar to what you just said is trying to remind people of promises. Okay. And we have to hold on to Jesus in the midst of this, but then it's finding ways to communicate that. My mom, you talk about the text, even though it isn't perfect or a FaceTime or whatever, she just so appreciates a little scripture passage or a little emoji or something to make her laugh, or just something that reminds her that she's not alone. And it's that greater community coming together. And so we just got a whole bunch of new elders at my church, and the first thing that I did with our elders was to talk about this, which is how can we connect with people in different ways, just to let them know that we care. My associate pastor's in rehab right now. He was in the hospital. We were able to visit him in the ICU one at a time, but now in the rehab, nobody's allowed. His wife's not allowed to be there. Nobody's allowed to be there. And I said to Jan the other day, what do you need most? And she just said, prayer, just knowing that people are praying, but then just little opportunities of connection just mean the world to her. So it's challenging. It's challenging. And doing something like this, just again, you mentioned about your work, Linda, and having the community, of knowing that you belong to a community. So how do we help people to know that there still is a community available? And then what role does God play in all of this when we're feeling isolated? Jesus felt very isolated before he went to the cross, and very, very alone. And he went to the Father, and he talked to the Father about his feelings. He was very honest about his feelings. So finding ways to do that in our devotional lives, in our personal time, to be still and know that I am God, right? Those who wait upon the Lord will renew their strength and mount up on wings like eagles. Well, what does that mean? How do we personalize that for people so that they really know? And the last thing I'm going to just say is to listen. And not have all the answers, but to just be compassionate and just be a listening ear, and let people share what's going on and pour it out, and feel safe that they can pour out whatever's going on in their lives, and that they're not going to be judged for the feelings they have.
Yeah, both of you are illustrating the importance of community. Whether that's church community, whether that's work community, whatever that is, and finding that, Pastor Jim, what you just illustrated is the creative ways to do that, and we can. It's just figuring that out and having these conversations. Jason, when we're going to move now to, so if a patient did succumb to COVID or just normal end of life, whatever it was, it still couldn't be normal for them when they wanted to come to you to plan a service. And how did y'all initially respond to that? And then what did you see happen throughout the year?
Sure. Initially, excuse me. Initially, there was a lot of fear with having a ritual, with having a gathering, and most people postpone. We're going to postpone. We're going to postpone. We're going to postpone. And then myself and my team, we started getting creative. Let's use technology to help people gather. We may only be able to have 10 people in our building in March, but we're going to have a Facebook Live for friends and family to join in. We're going to connect with the nursing home where the individual lived, to set up a group area so they can watch the Facebook Live service where they're at. So those types of ideas we've brought to the table, along with increasing our sanitation as far as wipe downs and cleanings and regular treatments as far as our cleaning habits go, to make people feel more safe and comfortable when they're in our facility, and more hopefully open to attending the services, because we do recognize the importance of gathering, and that's really what we see as a way to help people through their grief, is to gather and share.
Right. And as I'm listening to you, Jason, I'm putting myself in your shoes too. Just like Jim and Linda, you're a caregiver in a sense, because you're coming alongside those families in a very important, traumatic time in their lives. So this had to have some impact on you and your staff as well, just as human beings who are providing care, right?
Absolutely. When COVID first started, people were fearful of even coming to meet with us. We're so used to meeting face to face and in person. we were having to do FaceTime meetings or WebEx Zoom meetings to make arrangements. And that's just very foreign for us. It makes us come off as robotical and that we necessarily don't care. But again, how we've evolved that is just getting people comfortable, is let us come to you. Let's sit on the back porch and make arrangements. That way we have the human connection. We have the human, we not necessarily touch, but yet the presence of me being there, I feel would be a little bit more of a comfort than us doing a Zoom meeting and to go over arrangements and to plan a celebration of life. So that's what we've tried to do, is we've tried to go to give opportunities to go to the people and be with them during their loss, to help them.
And I like
Yeah.
what Jason just shared. I'm how do I want to word this? Providing different ways.
Right.
Some people are, they're only going to meet through this and they only feel safe doing it through this way. Okay, then let's make sure we provide technology and ways for people to connect this way. But then also other people are going to be fine to meet outdoors on the bench and social distance. And then there are some people who are ready to really meet in person. So I think providing all those means that will connect with the person who's dealing with their grief is really important, and really looking at creative ways, but from one side to the other of really providing those opportunities.
Yeah, and that's important, but it also adds in a certain level of anxiety and stuff, because you're doing stuff you hadn't had to do before, and
Yep.
are we doing it
Yep.
right, and all those things. So there's a lot of levels here.
Yes,
Linda,
there
I'm
is.
curious. Linda, your family, if you want to share whatever you would like, what were the choices your family has made as far as like a service?
We've actually decided to postpone.
Okay.
Um, and, and a lot of that is because I want to have that celebration in life and be able to hug people and cry with people, and haven't felt, and we have, as I say, children and grandchildren out of state, and with the travel concerns and quarantine, I'm looking forward, perhaps in the spring, we'll have a time where we can all fill the house, and then he'll be in the memorial garden at our church, and we'll have that opportunity. And it's difficult even in-person church now. There's so many things beyond just the loss. Like when I attended in person, and they're being very careful and people are spaced, but it really emphasized I'm one now.
Yeah.
Where before we would sit as a couple, and usually there would be other people in the same row and we'd kind of be touching. And now my oneness is really emphasized. So there are a lot of dynamics to this process that certainly understandable, but make it a different journey.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, as you touch on that, that's been one of the great challenges again with church. Is part of church is being able to be in community and be connected, and then we have the social distancing. And I was talking to someone the other day. Oh, it was the anniversary of her husband's death. Her husband had died 2 years ago. We were at church, we were social distancing, and then she started to cry. And then I asked her, and before it would have been different, but I said, do you mind if I approach you and give you a hug? And she said, I don't mind. And I gave her a hug. But I know for my mom, Linda, when she first went to church, that being by herself was hard. But then because we now have an environment where that's even emphasized more, that's a whole other dynamic. And my heart really goes out to you there. And I don't have an easy answer on how to help you process through that. That's part of why we're doing this.
Well, and I think that that's one of the things that when we talk about doing this grief share, and it is unique in this era of the pandemic, to allow people to talk about how it's impacted them, how it's different, and not necessarily to have the answers, but to, we're kind of other people who have been through it, and it is different. Um, it there are blessings also associated. I went in March, started working from home. So I spent much more time with my husband than I would have probably had I been going to the office on a regular basis. So some of that, looking at just all aspects of how there are also some things that maybe have been an advantage. I'm finding in families not affected by death, but just the kids are out of school, the kids are home, everybody's home, they're eating dinner together. They're finding they didn't need to do soccer and music and cheer and all the things that the family was involved in.
Yeah.
Realigning perspective. So it's a different experience. And I think for some, a year from now, it'll be in the rearview mirror and it won't carry with them. But some of us will carry 2020 for a long time.
No doubt. Listeners, you may not be familiar with what Linda just referenced, Grief Share. So let's help them understand that. Linda, I'll get you to share in just a moment, but listeners, Grief Share is a program that provides a space of what Linda was just describing. It's a support space for those who have lost someone, and that can be, we're going to share with you that can be online or in person, and we're going to be providing those kind of programs in January. I'll mention the dates and so forth in just a moment. But Linda, you want to share a little bit more about what they could anticipate if they went to a Grief Share, joined a group like that?
Yeah, I think Grief Share is unique in that some support groups, it feels like you're just kind of immersed in your grief, and week to week, everyone is just kind of sharing. I think the unique piece of Grief Share is it's actually provides a lot of education. It lets you know when you think you're losing your mind, that no, what you're experiencing is normal. So it normalizes a lot of that. You're with other people who are making this walk, but it is more directive. And I don't know if that's the right word, but it gives you a lot of information, and it is recognizes the notion that the grief is a journey, and where you are on day one is not where you're going to be in 6 months or a year or in 10 years. And to just be able to do that walk with others who are making the same walk, but each of us, it's going to be different. It's very, whether it's online or if it's in person, it's really at someone's own pace. You may choose to share what you're going through, or you may not be comfortable with that and be more private and just want to kind of attend and hear what other people are going through, and that's perfectly fine. And yeah.
Well, you've led several of these groups and found how meaningful it is for people to either, like you said, be educated or to just help them as they go through their process. So listeners, we want to share that there are 3 things that you could do to find out more. One is just to visit the website, go to griefshare.com and look at and find out more about what this looks like. And then we have 2 offerings of this program that Samaritan is offering. Linda's actually going to co-lead a group. It's going to be an online group, and one of our other counselors is going to join her in leading that group. And that's going to start on January 19th. So just know that you can reach out to us to know how to connect to that group. And I said the wrong date, didn't I? I meant to say January 12th. That's when your group is starting. January 19th is when an in-person group is going to be provided, and that's going to be happening at First United Methodist Church in Bradenton. Another one of our counselors will be leading that in-person group. but you can go on that website and find any group, or let's see what groups are available closest to you. So if you're watching this and you're in Idaho, you can put your zip code in and you can find what programs may be close to you. And of course, now there's more online group options available. So this is like Linda, you were just saying, there's some blessings that we can look at and find in this. And I think one of those is the forward use of technology and using online presence like we're doing right now, but just having a support group like this online. So listeners, if you got any questions about any of that, contact us and let us know. I want to wrap up our conversation today, but just thinking a little forward here. Jason, as you look into 2021, I can't imagine there's a whole lot of immediate change that you can see happening, but just as you think about what 2021 could look like for your company, how do you see that playing out?
Sure. What I would like to see is for us to stay in contact with our families we worked with in 2020. And when, keep in contact just by picking up the phone every month or so, just to say hello.
Great.
And offer the idea of, you mentioned putting off a service, a celebration, a goodbye for your loved one in 2020. Are you comfortable now? Are you comfortable having it? And if not, no big deal. We'll touch base again just to make sure you're doing okay. And we're going to offer to help celebrate your loved one's life, because we feel it's important to memorialize. We feel it's important to gather, but we do recognize that you have to be comfortable. You have to be 100% open to that and be comfortable. And that's what I'm hoping in 2021 we're seeing a lot more people saying, yeah, it's time to gather. It's a lot safer now than it was in 2020. Let's gather, let's memorialize, let's celebrate the loved one.
Well, we bless you and your work and your team's work as you move forward with that. That's important work, very important work. Jim, and you just mentioned you have new elders there. So you're new still. I mean, 6 months in a church position still is new. So what do you see potentially for your church and your community in this kind of work for 2021?
Well, one is really what we're doing right now, and I really appreciate you inviting me to be a part of this, of connecting to our community and letting our community know that there are resources and people that care and that want to work together. So, if I have a situation that comes up, I know I can refer them to Jason, and I've heard more about what he's doing and with Samaritan Ministry as well. So that's been a big part. I quickly want to say, Linda, my mom went through a grief share at her church, and initially she didn't want to do it. And then the first time she went, she said it was too painful, but then she kept going back, and it ended up being very helpful to her. So I just want to give a plug to people out there that it's another way to process through things, and she really benefited from it, and was actually going to try to start something where she was living, but with the COVID, it was just kind of hard to do it right now. But she was so moved that she was ready at 82 to lead a grief share group. So, and that's the last thing, just to say, our church is open. We had to really wrestle through all of that, but we're trying to find ways, whether it be through this technology, through in person, but just providing different ways to connect with people. And one of the things, going back to my elders, I know of another pastor where because he had enough of a team, his members were getting a phone call at least every 2 weeks from somebody in the church just to connect. And they just made that was going to be a point of emphasis because so many people were home and not coming to church. So again, getting creative to connect with people.
That's a very good word for all of us, because sometimes we may be in a place where it's hard for us to reach out, but just having that courage, like your mother took, to step out and create that connection, even if it's uncomfortable, just knowing it's going to benefit me and everyone around me. That's really important. And
Now she had her son that was saying, "Mom, go do that."
That's right.
But she didn't. I had to push a little bit. But that's another
Yeah.
little piece too. Is
That's right.
it doesn't have to be me. If there's someone that could pick up the phone and say,
Mhm.
"Hey, this is something that could be beneficial." I mean,
That's
that's
right.
that community coming together and helping.
That's right.
And it's one of the things we encourage is for someone, whether it's Grief Share or another program, go 2 or 3 times. It sometimes takes that
Yeah.
second time, third time, give it a chance because it is incredibly painful. It can feel awkward, and it can feel awkward if it's your first time on Zoom and
Yeah.
you're dealing with the technology. Today, my internet went out, so I was able to get creative and try to get on my iPad so we could do this. But, for those of us who are mature, the technology is not always as friendly. But give it a chance. And I think there's value in leaning into the pain. And when I say that, recognizing that's part of this process and journey, and whatever you're feeling is okay.
And Linda, I just want to commend you. We've already heard it's only been 2 months, and you're illustrating what this could look like. Of course, as a counselor, you understand that, but still, it's personal for you, and so you're leaning in and doing the best you can, but you still need support too. And so that's what this whole conversation is about how whatever our role is, whether that's a caregiver, a pastor, or we're the one needing to receive that. Let's all recognize we're here together, and of course, Scripture is with us, God is with us, our church is with us, our community is with us, and that's why this conversation is so important, just to remind us of that and to give us the hope that this all represents. I want to thank all 3 of you for participating today. Listeners, thank you for watching. I encourage you to reach out to any of us on the screen today, any of the places that we serve, communities that we serve, so we can help you if you have any particular needs, or just if you just need to talk, call us, and we certainly are here to help you. Thanks for watching today. Thanks for participating. Have a good afternoon.
All right. God bless you all.